Let's get this sports podcast party started, all right?
The J Reels Podcast.
What is happening, Michael people? Greetings. How are you? How's it going? How's everybody doing out there? What is the latest and greatest? Hope everybody's doing well, feeling fantastic and excellent spirits. Joining me on this video portion of the podcast is none other than Cris Dishman, the former cornerback, most notably of the Houston Oilers. Went to college at Purdue with the Boilermakers, played with Rod Woodson, yes, the Hall of Famer, one-time Pittsburgh Steeler, Baltimore Raven, etc. And he's going to give us a little insight as to what his career was like, not only going back to college, playing in the pros, being part of that Houston Oilers team, 1993, which they lost that brutal playoff game to the Buffalo Bills in the wild card round in the 92 season, going back to January 1993. And also him being a coach, as he'll detail what it's like coaching as opposed to being a player. We get into all that and then some. So thanks so much for stopping by. My conversation with Cris Dishman forthcoming, and I'll see you on the other side. And to get us started, I know you've, of course, been coaching. And that's one of the things that, yes. And ironically, during the 2020 XFL season, I think I may have mentioned this in an email to you, that we happen to be in the same elevator because I did get credentials for the XFL at that time. And it was interesting because I saw you walk into the elevator and I said, oh, Cris Dishman, hopefully I'll get an opportunity to speak with him. And then, of course, COVID hit, and then that went right out the window. So,
you should have said something to me when you saw me.
I should have, but I know you were with a bunch of other coaches, and obviously I didn't want to make a scene there. So, you know what? Here it is now, 2 years in the making to have you here. So start off with that, with coaching, what you've been doing this day and age. Obviously, your career in the NFL, I don't want to say it's long gone just to not show your age, but no, of course.
You don't have to say it. I say it.
No, absolutely. So, yes, tell us how you got into coaching, because I know you've been bouncing around. I know San Diego, and obviously you had a bunch of stops, but right now you're currently with the New Jersey Generals, I believe, with the USFL. Is that right?
Yes, I coached with the Generals this last offseason. And then, like you said, bouncing around. I just try to take wherever God take me. That's where I decided to go to. And now God has taken me to the XFL back again with the Vegas team. With
nice.
Rod Woodson. So I am going to be coaching there for the next year. So like I said, wherever God takes me, that's where I go. I leave it up to his direction and just follow his direction. I've been coaching almost 17 years now.
Wow.
I know my wife and I the other day looked like 17 years. Where are we been? We missed some stops in between, but we had the Expo. It was 4 years here, 3 years here, 1 year, 1 year, 1 year, 1 year, 2. You know what I'm saying? We have a lot of 1 years. So hopefully here soon that those 1 years can turn more into 4 or 5 years, and I can stay in one place longer, you know. But like I said, wherever God takes me, that's where I go. I just love coaching. I love coaching young men. I love coaching the camaraderie of the guys in the locker room, the camaraderie in meetings, putting a plan together and then having it come through. Knowing that, you know, on the sideline, sometimes when I call calls, hoping that they'll work out and the person make the play. And sometimes I call a call that I was like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Then the guy make the play, and I tell myself a great call. So it's one of those things that I just, you know, I love to be in a young man's life and have him years later still text and call me coach.
No, that's the ultimate compliment right there. And it's interesting because considering that you've now been a coach 17 years, and I'm kind of curious, especially over the last few years with social media, all the distractions that are out there, is it tough to get through to the younger player, especially you being a part of the defense, or is it pretty much business as usual when it comes to getting the guy's attention pretty much 24/7 to be invested and involved in the team?
One thing about younger generation is I was young at one time and you was young at one time. We feed off information.
Right.
We're knowledge for power. We want knowledge. So everyone said, oh, the young generation is not. Well, it's part of the young generation. You got to adapt to their generation, you know, in order to be a good, successful person. I learned to adapt to, hey, we have to have music in practice. I learned to adapt to that. When I grew up, and I'm sure when you grew up, it was no music at all. Everybody had to listen to the coach.
Right.
It was no, when I was taught tackling head in front. Today's football, you can't teach tackling head in front because of concussion protocol. You got to teach head behind, wrap and roll. So things have to change when things change. So like I said, I don't find it hard at all coaching the young generation because they're thirsty for knowledge. They want to learn. They understand that I've been there and done that, played in the NFL for 13 years, now 17 years coaching. So they understand that I know what I'm talking about. And like I tell them all the time, back when I played, I don't know, I hate to always say when I played,
Right.
it's always going to be a player's game, always. And the players can control what the outcome of the game is. I tell them all the time, it's not such thing as a bad call. It's a bad play, but not a bad call. Because no matter what call is called, you have to execute that call. And if you execute that call to the fullest, then it's going to be a great call. So I keep telling them, don't worry about calls, worry about your responsibility. What is your job? I always tell them, you always have to know your technique, your alignment, your assignment. What is your alignment? What is your assignment? What is your technique? How you can affect that play to be a positive play. And don't worry about one bad play. You don't want one bad play turn into two and turn into three. That's how you get yourself on a bench. But if you can quickly have that I call that DB mentality. I don't ever remember getting beat deep, even though I probably did sometimes. But you don't remember you don't remember plays like that. You got to go
Right.
on to the next play. And you got to learn from what the mistakes you've done. You got to come to the sideline, listen to the coach, look at the eye. Now today's football is great because guess what? You don't have the pictures. Back then we had the pictures. Now you have a live version, you have an iPad, you look and see. That's awesome. As a coach, it's helped you out as a coaching. It's so much easier to coach these days because you have the iPad right in front of you. As soon as the play happens, about 3 or 4 minutes later, you can go to the iPad and you can see the play. So there's no more, coach, I did this, I was there. No, you wasn't, because here's the play. Right there, you can show the guy the play and show him his mistakes right then and there. You don't have to wait for the next morning.
Right. And unlike yesteryear where you had to get the photographs, the black and white, usually you see the quarterbacks doing that, but I'm sure the corners and the DBs, yes, you probably got those same photos. And talk about, and again, I know it goes back to what you said from the time I played to now, but yes, everything is on an iPad. Like you said, the information is just coming at you nonstop. And I'm sure it makes your job a lot easier knowing that you don't have to wait for photographs or to wait to get word from the guys upstairs in the press box to get that information to you.
Right. It's like I say, you don't have to wait till the next morning. It's so much easier. And then it's like I tell guys that, honesty in football is the most important thing you can do. Because you tell a coach, oh, I was there, and he look at the play, I'm like, dude, you wasn't there. He was nowhere around there. Or you didn't get in that hole. You didn't get in that gap. But just be honest, that way we can correct it and move on. But don't tell me you was there and you wasn't. Just honesty is the most important thing in football.
Right.
From a player to coach perspective.
No, of course. And before we got to your playing days, one other thing about coaching, was that something that you always had in your mind, especially as you got later into your career, to kind of dabble or even go full force into coaching? Was that something was immediate, or did that happen over time before you were able to get on the sideline to control or patrol these sidelines with these young men?
Coaching, you have to, it's something that is in you, but you also have to form it. Whereas when I got through playing, I don't think I was ready to coach because I still could see myself playing another year. I want to play another year. But as the years went past, therefore I could realize that I can coach. And with coaching, you have to have patience because everyone's not going to be a Deion Sanders or Rod Woodson. Everyone's not going to be like that. So you have to be able to teach this guy the way you want him to be taught and understand how he learned. Everybody learns different. Some people you have to walk through, and some people can tell them and they get it right away. I have several players, you tell them something and get it right away. There's some players, they'd be like, they say they get it, but you see that clock steadily twirling in their head, they realize and you realize they don't get it. So you have to go out and walk through. And I tell them, you know what? Let's go walk through it because I don't know it that good. So let's just go walk through it together. So therefore, you take the pressure off of him of being, some people may, he can't learn or something like that. So you take the pressure off the guy and tell him it's all about you. You want to go walk through it. And then he just go walk through it with him and then he can get it.
Of course. And now it's funny because you mentioned Rod Woodson a couple of times, and this comes full circle because with you going to Vegas and being a part of his staff in the XFL, and then, of course, going back to your college days at Purdue, not only were you in the defensive backfield with him at Purdue, but you also were both track and field athletes to the point where I can imagine what the discussions were like, not only on the gridiron, but also on the track as well. If you kind of walk us through what your relationship was like with Rod, not only during that time in college, playing on the football field, and as well as on the track, competing against one another.
Yeah, Rod's a very funny individual. He always laughing and having fun and stuff like that. But here's how I met Rod Woodson. I was a receiver coming out of high school. So coming out of high school, I was a receiver. So getting to Purdue, they switched me to defensive back. So our position coach, Ron Mims, was yelling, Dishman, come here, Dishman, come here. But I stayed in the offensive meeting room because I've said, offense stay here, defense go in another room. I was sitting because I'm a receiver. I'm not no defense. Right. So Coach Mims came up, said, don't you hear me calling you? Aren't you Dishman? I said, yes, but I'm a receiver. He said, you were a receiver. You're a DB now. So I was like, and it wasn't no transfer portal or nothing like that. No. So I couldn't go run to the transfer portal. So I went over there and the only seat was left. And this is how God works in great ways. The only seat that was left for me to sit, because I was late to the room, was by Rod Woodson. And from that point on, Rod and I have been friends. And he reached over to me and tapped me, man, you all right. You can do this. You can do this. And from that point on, him and I have been friends. Of course, I got redshirted my first year, and he was practicing playing. And the only thing I was doing was practicing. So, but everything works out for a reason,
Oh, of course. And obviously you had all those battles, which we'll get to in the old AFC Central when he was a member of the Steelers and obviously you with the Oilers. So now kind of fast forward there, because of course you at Purdue and then you get drafted 1988. Did you feel like you should have been drafted higher? Was it a thing where, now back then the draft wasn't as big as it is today? I mean, you could watch the draft from, it's almost like watching the Oscars. I mean, that's how it is.
It's a whole week. The draft today is a whole week.
No, absolutely. But I just want to get a bit of an understanding of what it was like back then to think that, did you feel you should have been drafted a little bit higher there in the 88 draft, or where you fell, did that just give you motivation to just get after it and get yourself to the all-pro level that you did?
Jay, I was just happy to be drafted. I didn't back then. I didn't care what rounds. I didn't know nothing about no rounds. The Houston Oilers called me and said they was about to draft me. I didn't ask them what round, do nothing, because it wasn't televised.
Right.
So, I think the first round, no, not even the first round wasn't even televised. I don't think too much was televised. So it was not televised or nothing like it is now. And I wasn't invited to New York, nothing, to sit in the green room to be a first rounder. And when they called and told me they was going to draft me, it was only 3 people that was in my apartment. It was my mom, my dad, and I. And they knew that the draft day was that day. So I think my mom and dad came down for that day. And just in case if I don't get drafted, for I could hang out with somebody.
No, that's very smart.
I don't know if they came down for my big draft party. I had a draft party of 3. And my mom and I was watching the old Andy Griffin replays. I've told this story before. My mom and I was watching the old Andy Griffin replays, and my dad was back there asleep. Then finally, when the Houston Oilers called and said they was going to draft me, they ended up drafting me. My mom called back to my dad and told him that I got drafted, and my dad was ready to pack up and go back to Louisville. So,
Oh, wow.
it was one of those big party situations we had.
Nice.
So it wasn't, like I said, I was just happy to be drafted. I knew going into the draft or going wherever I go, I was going to make it. I had that determination that I'm going to make it. I'm not going to fail. I'm not going to fail my family. My mom and dad have put too much into this as far as the driving back and forth. We had an old clunker of a car. They was drive to Wisconsin. They would drive to Illinois. They would drive everywhere to see me play. And I said, I cannot go back to Louisville and not make it. And I just put the effort and energy in I did when I played in college, running the steps, running the hills, try to watch film, knowing me better than knowing my opponents better than I know myself, and just put the effort in to actually sit there and be successful. I wanted to be that guy, wanted to be the man. I always wanted the best receivers. Even when I was rookie, I used to go to Coach Glanville and tell him, I could cover that guy. And Coach Glanville used to look at me like, yeah, in the future you will.
Right.
So, and that's when he started calling me Future. That's when he's giving my nickname Future. In the future, everything was always in the future. Everything was always in the future with me. I said, Coach, I can cover him. Well, in the future, you will. I said, no matter who the receiver, I can cover him. Because I was very fortunate also to get drafted by the Houston Oilers because they played the bump and run, the man-to-man technique that we played in college. And if they played an off technique, zone type of technique, I don't think I would have been in the NFL. I was just very fortunate to get drafted by a team that played the same style defense. And that's where people don't realize that you see these rookies coming in, you think he's out of place, but he's not really used to the system. And I was fortunate to be used to the system. Hey, you got the guy on the right, you got a guy on the left, and you go up there and you can play off or you can bump. Well, with my skills, I was a lot better bump than playing off because I believed in my speed. I didn't think no one could outrun me. So that's why I just bump and run and go and carry it over into Houston because that's the system Coach Glanville never run. And Nick Saban was my position coach my first year, which he's still coaching DBs, which is he's a hell of a defensive back coach. He is the foundation of DBs. The drills that we have done back then in 1988, I still do now, and I still see him do the same drills because those drills work and they can carry over, and they game drills. They're not just drills to get you tired, not drills just to do drills. They game drills and everything that can come up in the course of a football game.
And that's interesting too, because you were a very physical defensive back, and obviously you were very tall. A lot of defensive backs back then, the first one that comes to mind is Dale Carter, based on his size, speed. And here you are, a guy that's over 6 foot, 6'1", I believe. And I was going to even ask you if the people out there who have never seen you play, your type of style compared to, I don't want to say today's game, but you were pretty much ahead of your time because back then, I get it that the rules were a little bit different, but if somebody just put on a tape to see Cris Dishman play, I'm sure they were looking and say, wow, this guy could have played in the NFL today based on everything that I just mentioned. So I'm sure that's got to be a compliment in its own right, considering that everybody looks at cover skills and speed, but physicality to me is also a key component in being a great corner.
You have to be an all-around corner. You have to. You got to cover, you got to hit, you got to tackle. You got to be able to do those things to be a DB. I love playing inside. I love playing the right, the left. I could play inside, and I made it a point. Even though I could run, Jay, I really didn't like to run.
Oh no,
I
really?
know it sounds crazy. It sounds crazy, but I always as I studied the game, I said, okay, if I can get my hands on these guys within the first 5 yards, I don't even have to run that much.
Right.
Because the quarterback only have in the pros 3 seconds at max to throw the football. So within those 3 seconds, if I can have this quarterback go 1,001, 1,002, up to 1,003, he have to get off my guy. He have to go somewhere else. So that was my strategy of getting my hands on early, doing my work within the first 6 yards, and have the quarterback go somewhere else with the football, because there's no way he can sit back there and hold the football, especially with our defensive line, with Ray Childress, Doug Smith, William Fuller,
Yes.
Lamar Latham coming off the edges. With our defensive line, there's no way he can sit back there and hold the football. So that's why I was just trying to mathematically do the numbers. All right. He have 3 seconds to throw the football. If I could hold this, be in front of this guy for 2 seconds, then I'm okay. And like, and I'm sorry to jump around, but when I first retired, I followed the rodeo circuit. I did cutting competition, which is cutting horses. So I used to do those, and I was the horse, and the receiver was the cow. If you go back and look up cutting competitions, you see the horse always try to stay in front of the cow for 3 seconds. And he's had to keep, and then he go and get another cow and stay in front of that cow for 3 seconds. So I enjoy doing that. And that's why I used to tell the receivers that you're the cow, I'm the horse. I want to be able to do cutting competitions with you and keep you in front of me for 3 seconds. Yeah.
Wow, interesting. And it's funny also what you mentioned earlier, having a bad memory to play cornerback is also vital because, right, if you're getting burned or getting torched by the Jerry Rices of the world or Michael Irvin, you definitely do not want to, if you're having a bad day, the last thing you need to do is sulk or hang your head, because the one thing you have to do is erase that from your memory bank in order to play a good game.
You do. You have to erase it, but you have to, it's a metaphor. You have to erase it, but you have to remember. You have to remember what you did wrong, what steps you did wrong. If I went with the wrong hand, if I hard jammed him already once, then I can't hard jam him again. I got to play off. If I was hard inside and he went outside and came back in, then I got to remember the release he used and stuff like that. So you can't, I say out there is the game within the game. You got to play the game within the game out there. You can't do the same thing every time, because that receiver is going to get a B on you and know exactly what you're doing when you play off, when you play press, if you're hard inside. Sometimes I was hard inside, move out, sometimes hard outside, move in. So I just try to play the game within the game out there with the receivers, because it keeps them guessing.
Absolutely. And now that we talk about your career to get into the old rivals in the AFC Central, and I'm sure this is brought up to you quite a bit, I think about the one game in Cincinnati, which I'm sure you probably talked about 1,000 times. Sam Weish, the 61-7 game where their onside kicking, I believe, was at 45-0. And I believe you also had, if not a fumble recovery, maybe even been an interception. And I know that pretty much egged the crowd, and I'm sure got the Bengals sideline all ticked off. And you mentioned Jerry Glanville. Was Glanville pretty much a proponent of why the Sam Weishes, even the Chuck Knowles of the world, couldn't stand not only just he, but also your team? Or was it a thing where you embodied pretty much what Jerry Glanville was trying to say, so therefore they were coming at you, whether it be the Browns, Bengals, or Steelers, because there were only 4 teams in the division back then? Kind of go through what that was like, just being that team with the black hat and knowing that wherever you went to, Three Rivers, Riverfront, and even Cleveland Municipal Stadium, that it was definitely going to be a battle, to say the least.
Well, we relished being the black hat. We loved it. Jerry Glanville used to wear his all black. He used to leave his tickets to Elvis.
Right.
As a team, we had so many great players and so many good character guys on our team. We had some funny individuals. We had some serious individuals at times, but we had guys who loved the competition of playing, who accepted anything in front of them and did by any means necessary try to work it out. Right. So it wasn't like, oh, we was ducking and hiding, don't let them see us. We was like, okay, we're here. What are we gonna do? We're here. Right. So we was very confident in our abilities as players, and we had a very good team. My years in the Oilers, we had so many good teams that we just couldn't get over the hump in the playoffs. But we had so many good teams. If you could just look at our running backs alone, in the run and shoot, we had Mike Rozier, Alonzo Highsmith, Alan Pinkett, Lorenzo Wright, Gary Brown. We had 5 running backs at four running backs at one time on a team that was a one-back offense, And we had 4 great backs who could have went anywhere and played somewhere else. Then we had the receivers, an offensive line with Matthews, Munchak, Pennison, David Williams, Brad Hopkins. We had so many guys that was like, it was crazy. And then we had 2 linebackers that you guys probably very rarely hear. And one of our defensive tackles, you very, very hear his name is named Doug Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Doug Smith demanded the double team. Couldn't no one in the league block him one-on-one. He demanded the double team, so therefore the William Fullers, the Ray Childers, the Sean Jones, all those guys can get off and get in the sacks. But you look at the film, you have 2 people or maybe 3 on Doug, and no one on our end because he demanded the double team. That center could not snap the ball and try to block him. That wasn't going to happen.
Right.
So you had guys like that. Then you had guys like Eric Fairs, one of our linebackers from Memphis, who was very good special team players, and the human bowling ball, Eugene Seals, who was a hell of a special teams player.
Right.
We had so much talent on that team that it was like constantly that, and we challenged each other in practice. Some of our best games was at practice. Going against receivers like a Hayward Jeffries, a Ernest Givens, a Curtis Duncan, a Willie Drury, a Tony Jones, Drew Hill, going against those receivers like that. It's like, then they catch the ball, they start talking smack. Then I knock down a pass, I talk smack. The next thing you know, we got a full off brawl.
Right.
So it was one of those things that we loved coming to practice because we wanted to show the other person up, and it carried over in the game.
And then I have to ask this. I know this is going down memory lane, but then a bad memory, but I'm going to lump this up in one. Which one hurt more? And I think for obvious reasons, I could probably guess, but the 91 division loss in Denver, of course, the game up in Orchard Park in Buffalo the following year, or the game at home against Kansas City. Which one of those 3 stung the most?
Well, I think they all hurt the same, I got to say the Buffalo. I think the Buffalo would be hurt more.
Because of the lead.
Because of the lead. And we did get cocky. We got very cocky. I know I got very cocky. I was like, sure, I unloosed my shoulder pads a little. I was like, They ain't running the ball. They ain't going to run the ball. They're going to throw.
Right.
So I'm thinking picks. You hear what I say? I'm thinking picks. So right. I think a lot of players got to where they started thinking about themselves and not thinking about the game itself.
Mm.
And I'm a corporate of that. I'm guilty of saying that. I'm one of those.
Right.
I was thinking like, okay, I can get this pick, I can get this interception, I can do this, I can do that. I started thinking about that instead of thinking about the end results of getting this win and moving on.
And I was going to ask you what were the reasons why, but you explained that eloquently there as to, like you said, the shoulder pads got a little bit loose. I'm sure everybody in the sideline was looking forward to next week at 35-3 after Bubba McDowell's pick 6. Yeah. Oh, geez. But I figured that would be it. And I would also think, like you said, they're all the same, but the game against Kansas City in your building, and that year, obviously, they made a documentary out of it, Houston 93, and that was probably as crazy of an NFL season, and it kind of goes under the radar because you guys didn't win, and of course, for all the players that you mentioned, you guys were just fully loaded, but with the situation, Bud Adams says that if we don't win a Super Bowl, I'm going to dismantle the team, the 1-4 start, the situation with Jeff you also had Buddy Ryan, Kevin Gilbride on the sideline. I mean, that was as chaotic as a year as it was, and I'm sure you've probably explained that several times to a lot of the people like myself who are wondering how that year really just came together, but at the same time fell apart.
One of our coaches, Frank Novak, we was at the halftime of the New England game and we were getting beat. And Coach Novak just got up, started screaming, "I'm tired of this SHIT, I'm tired of this." And just was like, challenged everyone. He got in everyone's face and challenged everyone to do better.
Right.
And I think we ended up winning that game. Yeah, I think we ended up winning that New England game and got us to 2-4 instead of 1-5.
Right.
And from that point on, we went on a tear. We went on a roll because we came together as a team to decide that this is our team. And like I tell you, it's always a player's game. And once the players get together and decide this is our team, yes, we need the coaches, we need the coaches' help, but this is our team. This is our responsibility as well as the coach's responsibility.
Mhm.
You know, and that's when you can start winning.
Yeah, and that's pretty much as best as you could put it. And to think that you guys who had that start 1-4, and then you won 11 straight, and then that game in the Astrodome, and then soon after that, of course, a couple more years, that's when Houston ended up going to Tennessee. And then at that point, I know you bounced around a little bit, went to Washington, then, of course, went to play for the Vikings before wrapping up his career.
Kansas City. Yeah.
No, of course, Kansas City too in between that. So I'm sure that even though your stay in Houston is what you're going to be remembered by, but the other stops along the way, how significant was that for you during your playing days?
It was good. It was good leaving Houston, even though I didn't want to leave Houston, but I think I had to leave Houston. You come to the point in your career where you say, okay, I got to go somewhere else. And I teamed up with a wonderful individual, Daryl Green. I'm sure we all heard of Daryl Green.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So I teamed up with a wonderful individual like Daryl who helped me on and off the field. You know, it's just having a guy like that and see him, how he can played over 20-something years. I can see how and why he played over 20-something years, because his dedication to him, to his family, his dedication to God, his dedication to his business of work, and which is football. And seeing that helped me grow. And I thought I was at a high point of my career, but seeing a guy like Daryl Green go out every day and practice is extremely hard. Like he played, said after practice running laps, before practice and running laps. I was like, man, this guy never stops.
Right.
I used to call him Every Buddy, and he bring it. He said he got all his energy from Tootsie Rolls. So
is that right?
Yeah. So but seeing someone like that practice, it made me turn my game up a notch. And that's why him and I both that year went to the Pro Bowl.
Oh, very nice. Now, a couple other things. Your thoughts about the game today. Do you still watch it? Do you follow it? Oh, okay. Fantastic. And obviously with all the rule changes, and again, I know you don't want to be the guy that's, during my days, understood. But do you enjoy the game just as much as you did watching it as a fan now than you were playing it back in your day?
No, of course I love playing it before watching it.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, but do I enjoy the game? Yes, I do enjoy the game.
Oh, okay.
I love seeing the game. I love seeing the young guys, not young guys, a lot of my young, I should say men. I love to see the men achieve their goals, winning the Super Bowl. I love seeing Eric Weddle, the guy I used to coach, come back and get his Super Bowl ring, which he's well deserved of.
Right. The Rams.
So I watched the game, and the game is a little different. Yes, the quarterbacks are much protected now than it was back then. Right. So if I'm a quarterback, I know no one can hit me. I know they can't hit me that hard, so I'm just going to sit in the pocket and wait and wait and wait and wait. So that's the advantage of more than anything back then. And then they always had a 5-yard rule, so the DBs always had a 5-yard rule. Now, what's I don't like is, say the ball is thrown to the left side of the field, and someone on the right side of the field touch a receiver pass 5-6 yards and get a flag. That's considered defensive pass interference, and it's a penalty, but it's not affecting the play on the left side of the field.
Right.
Now that I don't like.
No, of course. No, because then that's one of those things where it's like, hey, you want to call the game uniformly. You don't want it to be a thing where you're going to take your spots, or the referees are going to be a big influence in the game one way or the other, whether they don't throw the flag or whether they do. And obviously that could change the outcome of a game, or especially during the postseason, which obviously everybody has their eyes on.
It kills you. And I do like the instant replay. And I'm going to say this, I've been saying this, that we had instant replay when Buffalo came back, when Don Beebe stepped out of bounds.
Yes.
He ran out of bounds and came back in and caught the football.
That's right.
That would have been instant replay, and that would not have been a touchdown. And we would never talk about the Oilers-Bills comeback, because it would never been a comeback.
Absolutely not.
at 7 points off the board.
Yeah, and then who knows what the outcome of that game would have been. Absolutely.
Correct.
100%.
Correct.
Yes. All right, I have some rapid fire for you because, of course, I would just want to be cognizant of your time. So I will start here. What was the favorite stadium that you played in?
Favorite stadium I played in was the Browns,
Cleveland?
because the fans used to throw snowballs and ice at you and batteries and stuff like that. I used to love that.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. And they were rough too, that dog pound. So
Right.
the one quarterback that you knew was going to be a long day.
Dan Marino.
Enough said. What about wide receiver?
Jerry Rice when he don't talk to you.
Oh, is that right?
I
Oh,
used to talk a lot of smack to Jerry, but when he talked smack to me back, I was like, okay, I'll be all right. But when he don't say anything, then I'm like, oh snap, this is gonna be a long day.
oh, you knew it was going to be trouble.
Yeah.
What about favorite teammate?
Well, I got a lot of favorite teammates. I just mentioned Rod Woodson at Purdue.
Sure.
I mentioned Daryl Green.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned my buddy Bubba McDowell, who's coaching at Prairie View.
Oh.
And right now he's a head coach there at Prairie View. So I have so many teammates. I just can't pick one.
No, I totally understand.
Yeah.
Also, what was the biggest moment or highlight of your career?
Getting in the game the first time. Getting the game the first time versus the New York Jets and Wesley Walker.
Yes.
I know it was a highlight and a low light. The highlight, I got a chance to play against Wesley Walker.
Right.
The low light, he beat me for two touchdowns that game.
Oh, no, of course. So the highlight and the low light all in one.
It's all in one.
Yes. No, absolutely.
So, and just being able to see other people cheer for you and make their day.
Right.
No matter if it's a win, a loss, signing an autograph for a young player or signing an autograph for a fan, and them telling me that thank you and oh I'm glad you did it and stuff like that. Just able to be be a joy to somebody else.
Right. And listen, and you did that for me here tonight. So, Mr. Dishman, I really appreciate your time. And not only that, taking a trip down memory lane about your career.
Oh, yeah.
Best of luck with the Vegas team out in the XFL. And hopefully somewhere down the road, we will meet again or reconvene. And once again, it's an honor and pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Jay. Have a great one.
Thanks goes out to Cris Dishman. Again, this was a conversation that took place quite a while ago, but considering that this is the final Sunday of the NFL season, no more football to be seen until we get to training camp in July. But one more time, shout out to him and spending a few moments with me to share what his career was like, his experience, etc. in the NFL, coaching, and what have you. As always, please subscribe, rate, review, throw me a like, a nice review, comment, whatever it may be. It will go a long way just to increasing the visibility of this podcast with all the others that are out there. If you want to hit me up, not only here on YouTube at JReels, but also on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, the JReels Podcast, Twitter, X, JReels, one just a number, the old-fashioned way, the JReels Podcast at gmail.com. I'll be more than happy to follow up with you guys and gals, because whether you do or do not know, this is what I love to do, people. It's in the blood, it's in the DNA, as I like to say, talking sports pretty much since birth. Continuing to bring nothing but fire, passion, energy, fury with my thoughts, opinions, critiques, praise, analysis on anything and everything that happens on the world of the diamond, ice, gridiron, hardwood, golf course, racetrack, tennis court, boxing ring, octagon, you name it. From my lips to your ears, from my heart to your soul, from where I am to wherever you are, the JReels Podcast always comes correct, direct, and in full effect. From the South Bronx to South Beach to South Central to South Pacific and all points beyond, peace, love, and God bless everybody. And until next time on the JReels Podcast, on the flip, baby.